Perhaps, as I've said before, especially tonight, I'm covering Feuer and Flamme a bit late, right? About a little after a year since the album's released. But with D'Artagnan, I've come to love them so much, and I started first with covering some of the track selections from their newest album, FESTE. It's out now. It's a beautiful album from what I've covered thus far, and what I've heard. But I really came to love this group, right? So much so that I'm like, again, with D'Artagnan, it was a very early first impression, but I fell in love with their music immediately with My Loves in Germany. That was the first track I heard by them, and then I covered a couple of the others from their library, and I said, at that point, I'm going to go back, because it takes me a while to get the, for the music coverage I provide on this channel, which I love covering, for me, I try to cover a wide variety of artistic forms, because you oftentimes find, different pieces of artistry that you admire in different spaces, and the arts canvas these days is quite extensive. So for me, perhaps for those of you who are familiarized with my work on this channel, I cover a broad range already, from cinema to television to gaming, namely, but music has been a recent addition. Music, for me, is the most favorite out of all those art forms. It's the one that's impacted me the most in my life. And from what I love exploring around of perhaps talent that is obviously fresh to me, but unknown as well in my circles. Because what I found is I do tend to look in the lesser known and the more alternative. And that's where I find most of the talent. I mean, true, you have big name artists that I've come to love as well, but it's the but it's the ones of, let's say, a smaller audience. Again, not to throw any shade to D'Artagnan at all. It's those ones you realize are the talent you've always been missing. D'Artagnan has such a special place in my heart, and I've barely known them, for the course of my life, but I should have come across their music sooner. Folk rock, I love it, and I love the characterization of their tracks. The Musketeer vibe is so original. The use of different instruments, from the flutes to the bagpipes to, I just covered Farewell. Whatever that one instrument was, I don't know. Feel free to fill down the comment section below, but I love the variety, again, of unknown musical instruments, obviously, but talent that deserves a grander spotlight. And to some capacity, to the best of my extension and what I can do, I hope to provide that as well for perhaps some of you that are looking for, beautiful music like me and enchanting listens, and you want to gauge what's out there. Perhaps this maybe on more the lesser accepted side, because there's just talents that maybe not as exposed, right? I mean, this is not everybody in America obviously listens to European music. There's some of us that do, including me. It's a geographical extension of the music world that I've just fallen in such love and captivation with, from the not just D'Artagnan, but the wide variety of music that I listen to from different spaces and different countries within the European landscape. D'Artagnan, though, really has a special place in my heart. That, as I was saying, when I first covered them, I figured I'd cover, a good helping of their tracks, but it does take me a while to get coverage up. This is very much, in terms of what I provide on music coverage, it takes me a little longer, so I consider these passion projects. But I've always wanted to bring music to a bigger spotlight on this channel with special talents like D'Artagnan. But I decided, after really thinking about it, and it didn't take me that long, I want to keep covering this group, even if perhaps I'm a bit late to the scene. I wasn't as much with FESTE. I've, for the most part, kept up to speed with that one in terms of single releases, but I'm a bit late with Feuer and Flamme. But I have been so impressed from what I've heard from this album, from C'est la vie to going in order, Feuer and Flamme, Farewell, now to FESTE FEIERN. I love that name. I like the style to the accent you can throw on, but I really have been impressed. I mean, I just can't wait to hear more. I love covering D'Artagnan on this channel. Again, I've covered them, I think, more extensively than I have most other music groups by comparison. And that's not in any way to lessen my favor of other artists. I've just been so spellbound by this group. I'm like, you know what? I love sharing my first impression, and I love being able to spotlight, again, a group in grander focus that I truly believe deserves to have a grander spotlight. And again, I always judge that by my social circle. Because I can tell you, 90 to 95% of the people that I hang out with, and again, my circle is much smaller than others. I'm sure by comparison, if we were to compare sizes, no one knows this group by name. As really 100% of them don't know any of the groups I listen to from the European sector of the world. I hope that perhaps there's people out there like you who stumbled upon this video. Maybe, this was a natural click for you. Maybe it was you popped on this video by mistake. I hope that you're somebody who perhaps is looking for good music, and maybe you don't know necessarily where to look. I hope D'Artagnan is a special treat for you. They've been for me. so far, and again, I've covered how many of the tracks at this point. Let's give, in total, 8. Let's add a 9th with FESTE FEIERN. I think the name is great. I'm going to go ahead and cue up the video and the song. And for those of you who perhaps have not watched my music coverage in the past, I try to provide every convenience that I can in the world for my music coverage, perhaps to suit audience members' tastes. So if you're somebody that likes to read the narrative with the piece, and I'm assuming this is going to be sung in the original German, as most of our tracks typically are, I do provide the lyrics for you. They are at the bottom of the screen as the video goes along, and they'll track along with the song to keep an even pacing. In this case, I will not only provide the lyrics as written in their original German language, but I will also provide to the best extent of what internet translators can do, an approximated translation. All right. Again, I try to provide every convenience in the world, in focus especially for groups that I truly believe deserve a grander spotlight and deserve to have a much more extensive fan base, especially in America, where we need to, I think, have a grander reference for European talent. Because American art, I mean, just, again, with many exceptions to the groups that I love that are American-based, and there are plenty, I find a grander spotlight, let's say in comparison to like mainstream Hollywood, and then the European metal scene, rock scene as well. This one's quickly elevating as paramount, in my opinion. Hollywood could take a couple lessons from Europe. Anyway, maybe they could then elevate themselves to that level, because European metal is just, for me, I'm in such a deep romance with it. Anywho, FESTE FEIERN. Here we go.
Man muss Feste feiern, Feste feiern, wie sie fallen, denn vielleicht sind wir.
Okay, I like the vocal beginning. They haven't done that before without voided instruments. Okay, here we go.
Feste feiern, wie sie fallen, so als wäre.
But the spoken introduction was great. I've also said their music is very nostalgic. This reminds me of my Riverdance days. I know it's German, but it would fit perfectly with Celtic music. Like, Irish Horseshoe number incoming. It's already mapping in my head.
Ja, ich traf einen Greis und er sprach mit der Weisheit des Alters. Junge, schmiede das Eisen, solange es noch glühend und heiß ist.
I love the accents, dude. These guys are so talented.
König in seinen vergoldeten Hallen. Doch all dies war ihm zu wenig, nichts.
Okay, at this point, mixture of Irish Horseshoe and soft shoe. Dancer for 18 years. You start choreographing numbers in your head when you've been around that world for as long as I have. You just know it when you hear certain tunes. Ah, good pacing. Nice twist. Beautiful vocals. Ben really impresses me with his music. That was a good section. Ends that verse with the chorus beautifully. You could violin solo too. I'm always in the mood for strings.
Eiskalt hat gedroht, eines Tages hol ich deine Seele.
We're gonna musketeer pirate fight? Maybe? Oh no. Look at the way they're posing. Well, I guess they're working together. Never mind. I just saw that pose. I'm like, it reminds me of a pirate movie. I'm expecting an action scene. The song's almost over already, too. It's only a minute to go. Love this. strong finish. Oh, that's funny. See, these guys are so much fun. I love them. Man, I'll tell you, that track was paced beautifully. Some surprise twists as well in the way that was organized. I mean, the faster pitch, too. I love how this started out with, spoken word. They haven't done that yet, at least far I'm aware from the tracks I've listened to, so that felt fresh. But the energy to it, I mean, the faster pace, I love that. This really is, like I said, you just know certain music in your head when you've spent about 18 years in the dance world. I grew up there. For me, I need to go back to dancing. I miss it so much. Especially river dance. I mean, I did that for about 10 years. This is the music that, to me, in styling, just reminds me so much of the stuff we utilized in terms of my school. Not my school, but the school I was with. I know it's German. I know perhaps I would get some raised eyebrows. Like, you use German music for Irish dancing? I'm like, doesn't this fit, though? Like, if you've been, like, let's say Lord of a Dance or something like that with, like, Michael Flatley's show or a rendition of it, or you've just seen it, a hard shoe or soft shoe number before, maybe somewhere you've been, maybe at a county fair or somewhere, or some, annual Irish celebration. I had the absolute privilege, I consider it, of performing with some very talented, other young, at the time, we were all under 18. We were a private troupe, a community troupe, but we were part of a private troupe that we were doing, about 12 of us. The number did shift around, like 12, 10, but, people grow up, some people have other interests, and so we had kind of not generally, but we did have some of a rotating membership within the club, but we went around everywhere. I mean, we went to, it was based around the community, but we performed at, I know this is a bit of a tangent. I just love always storytelling. I guess I have to convince myself to some fashion that I have lived a dynamic life, because I've oftentimes forgotten, and D'Artagnan's reminded me of that, especially of my dance history. But we went around, let's say, county fair. We performed at an Irish restaurant one time. That was fun. We performed in, like, the bar section, but it was really fun. It was so different. We performed at schools. We performed at nursing homes, retirement housing. We've performed at, I say performed. That's not, I guess we performed to keep it in the past tense. Sad, I want to be the present, though. I want to bring it back. We've performed the annual Irish celebration every year that my hometown did. Well, it was the neighboring hometown. It was a sister city. This is the type of music that we would have utilized. Just in sound, I know it's German, but I would have, broken my arm if it meant that we could have used D'Artagnan. That's how much I care about the music, because it reminds me so much of my past, and I just love it. And it's really, again, like I said, in terms of my playlist, it's not like anything I've listened to yet. Folk rock is new. And yet it's not, because it has such a familiarity again in the sound that I'm like, it's just such a throwback genre for me. I really love this group. I'm just so impressed with them. And like I've said, before, where has this group been all my life? Like, I stumbled upon them about 2 months ago. Like, and this album's been out for over a year. I'm just so happy with it. I'm like, everything I've heard from them, I've loved. And FESTE FEIERN is no exception. And what a humorous video, too. I mean, the comedy in this was, I thought, really endearing. I mean, if the music wasn't that already for you, which I'm sure it was. What are your guys' thoughts with FESTE FEIERN? And for those of you who perhaps this is a first impression, or maybe you've been a long-time D'Artagnan fan, but I would be really interested here again, and I'd love to hear your opinion as well from what you think of the track and maybe your standpoint if that is your position. But for those of you who perhaps this is a fresh listen, and I hope there are some of you out there in my personal circle, you know who you are when I mention groups like this and you give me, blank stares. I hope that at some point we have a mutual understanding of the talents out there, and that maybe, your circumstances willing, I introduce them to you. I mean, that would be an extra benefit, but it would give us something else to talk about, and you could understand my appreciation for the perhaps lesser-known art, but again, the art that deserves a much wider focus. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are down below, again, whether you're a longtime fan or this is a first impression for you. And if it was a first impression, I really hope you loved it. This is D'Artagnan at its finest, and I apply that to everything at this point. I am in love with every track that I've covered on this channel. FESTE FEIERN is no exception. And a lot of the ones off of, let's say in consideration of Felsenfest, again, the new album, Siege der Wind reminded me explicitly of my Irish dance days. But there's a couple tracks thus far in this album that, tonally speaking, remind me a whole lot in sound. Again, like I said, Felsenfest has had maybe a couple, but Siege der Wind really sounded like that to me. FESTE FEIERN, absolutely. Like, it's, again, a flat-out Irish hard shoe, soft shoe mixture of sound for me, even though, again, it's got a German basis. It's so nostalgic. I love this trip down memory lane that D'Artagnan takes me down every time. I know it's unintentional, but it's just so great. I love their music so much. I love covering them. This has been an absolute treat being able to provide my first impression and share fabulous music with you. D'Artagnan, every time, just nails it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.